Good morning, everybody. Hey. Welcome, everyone. It's fantastic to be here and to be with you all again for the AWP Partners Workshop of 2023. So my name is Tamerlane Beasley, and I am a board member of the Australia-ASEAN Council with the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. I'm also CEO and founder of Beasley Intercultural, and I'm going to be emceeing and facilitating some of the events over the next couple of days. So we've got a great couple of days in store for you. It's going to be very interactive. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to have what I like to call the conversations that matter. And I think particularly in the world at the moment, the work that you do is of critical importance to so many of us and to our future and the future of our children. Seeing what's going on in terms of the bigger picture. Working internationally, I was in Palau last week, facilitating some more conversations around what's happening in our region and our world. And I think so many interdisciplinary conversations are so important. And I think this is one of the powers, the superpowers of AWP, is bringing together people from different backgrounds, different disciplines, different walks of life to have these conversations and to cross-pollinate ideas and take them forward into our respective workplaces. So this is something that we're going to be doing over the next couple of days. So please make the most of the opportunity to be in this room with this extraordinary group of people. What I'd like to do now is welcome Clem, who is going to provide our welcome to community. So Clem Newchurch is a member of the Kaurna community and he's going to be welcoming us to country. Thank you so much.
Apologies, I'm a bit late. When it rains in South Australia, we're not used to it. So, the traffic goes a little bit crazy and takes a little bit to get here. But in the language of this land, when we're meeting with a group of people, in our language, we say Namarni. Namarni means, are you all good? And if you're all good, you can say Mani I. So Namani. Yeah. Then I'd say Mani Nabudni, Garni Yarta, and Tandan Yanga. So what we just said then. So when I'm saying Namarni, I'm saying, are you all good? If I was saying it to a single person, I'd say Ninamarni. When I say Marni Nabudni, we say it's good that you're here on this land. Ghana Yarta, so Ghana country. And this spot in particular, we call Tarndanyanga. So Tarnda is the red kangaroo. And anything with an NGA at the end in this area is a place name. So this was the place of the red kangaroo. Unfortunately, we don't have any red kangaroos around here anymore. You've got to drive north to find the red kangaroos. But when we're talking about welcoming people to country, that's part of Aboriginal cultural protocol all around the country. And it's a bit of an adaptation of what's happened for thousands of years on this country. And I like to try and use these welcomes as a bit of a way of explaining that protocol. So for when we're talking about the word Mani on Ghana land, the word Mani, so we say good nowadays, but another translation, it actually means fat. Are you fat? Or are you big? Are you healthy? Or have you eaten? You know, have you been fed? And when you think about that, so for our old people, you know, when you're coming and visiting our country, it was important for our old people to make sure that you're Mani on country, that you're looked after. It would have been the ultimate shame if you come to my country and you starve to death. And, you know, that would have meant that, you know, if I was looking for a wife from other nations, You know, their father wouldn't want their daughter to marry me if I couldn't keep their family fed. When I go to another nation, so I'm acknowledging that nation is somebody else's nation, or you know, it's the culture of that landscape. I'm showing my respect to that nation because I get looked after when I'm going to that nation as well. So when we're welcoming people to country all over the country, it's about looking after each other and making sure that when people are visiting our land, they don't go hungry. One of the other things that we like to do when we're welcoming people to country is we like to show our respects to our elders, past and present. So when I'm doing welcome to countries, I take this opportunity to talk a little bit about my Kaurna ancestry on this land. My Kaurna ancestry is on my grandfather's side of the family. So my mum was born in England, and my father was born on Wallaroo on York Peninsula. So I get my fair skin off my mum's side of the family and my curly hair off my dad's side of the family. But yeah, so when we're looking into our family histories, because of the impact of colonisation and with Aboriginal people being sent to different missions, a lot of bad things happen in those missions. But one of the, I guess, the positive things for us is we've got a lot of information about our family histories. And so when I've looked into my family history on my grandfather's side of the family, so my father's father, so my grandfather's father's mother's mother's mother was a Kaurna woman from around this area or a little bit further south. There's a couple of different stories. Her name was Nellie Ramanyamarun, and she lived on this country early 1800s. So South Australia was settled in 1836. Around that time, she would have been a teenage girl living somewhere south of Adelaide. No Europeans lived on the mainland at that time. So in 1836 was when a fleet of ships came from the eastern coast, and Europeans started to actually build houses on the mainland. Before 1836, though, we had different people from all over the world, Europeans mainly, based on different islands around Australia. A lot of those, mainly men, were sealers. So they'd go out into the Southern Ocean hunting seals and whales and send all that oil back to England. For Nellie Ramanyamarun, so she was actually taken by a Russian Finn. So his name was John Wilkins, and he was residing on Kangaroo Island in the early 1800s. For those men, because they didn't have wives, they'd quite often come to Narungga country over on York Peninsula, Kaurna country here. They'd go to Nyaranjeri country down in the Coorong, so the Murray Mouth, and they'd go all the way across to Tasmania, and they'd steal women from each of those areas and take them back to places like Kangaroo Island. For Kaurna and for Narungga and for Nyaranjeri, Kangaroo Island is known as like the land of the dead. So for Kaurna, Narungga and Nyaranjeri, Kangaroo Island separated from the mainland about 8,500 years ago. And for about the last 2,500 years, nobody lived on Kangaroo Island before Europeans came across. So it's a different landscape. For about 2,500 years ago, our old people decided that that was going to be a special place. And our shared belief with Narungga and Nyaranjeri is that after you pass away, your spirit travels across to Kangaroo Island, and that's like the stepping stone into the next world. So for Nellie Ramanyamarun, I think it would have been a pretty horrific life. She got taken when she was pretty young, taken away from her family, taken away from her traditional lands, and taken across to a place where she believed her ancestors' spirits were resting. Not the nicest stories. Like there's multiple stories of Kaurna women who got taken across there, and Palawan women from Tasmania, Narungga and Nyaranjeri women. Some of those stories talk about when women passed away on the island. Sometimes their children, primary school age children were just chucked into boats on the island and just pushed off the shore, left to fend for themselves out in the middle of our Gulf here. That story talks about one boat washing up here at Port Adelaide, another boat washing up down around the corner about 100 k's away at Victor Harbour. There's even a story about a Kaurna woman who swam back from Kangaroo Island. It's about 14 k's. And that story says that she had a baby on her back. And the story says, it's our oral histories, that she passed away of exhaustion when she made it to the mainland, but her baby survived. Not the nicest stories, I know, but I tell these stories in a lot of different settings, even with really young people. For us, it's about that truth telling. It's about recognizing our elders. It's about showing our respects to those old women. Because if we think about it, if it wasn't for the strength and their fight for survival, a lot of Ghana people wouldn't be here today. A lot of Naranga and a lot of Nyatijeri, a lot of Palawa people wouldn't be here today. So that's just trying to put it into a little bit of context, why we do the Welcome to Country, why we show our respect to our elders past and present. I've actually just had my sister rock up into the door. She was parking the car while I ran in here. So my sister, Kwali Newchurch, I'm going to handball over to her and she can kind of expand a little bit on what I've just talked about.
Namani. So Clem's just given a bit of a talk about our elders. Oh, okay. And I want to talk, when we're talking about our elders, who do you think about as your elders? You know, you've got aunties, uncles, your parents and grandparents, people around you that you look up to. We've got our elders dotted through our landscape as well. Our big old elder trees. So we've got many big river red gums just around us. I'm going to take you to meet them later on today. These elder trees are so important. Some of them have been here since pre-colonization. They were a part of us, part of our culture, our song, dance, and ceremony. And they also suffered that same loss of their people, a loss of their land. They watched that destruction. These elders, they connect to all the life around them, all the plants in their underground systems. They stretch far and wide and tap into each other. And they help those plants to grow and thrive and survive. Does that sound familiar? It should. That's what our elders do. They connect with everyone around them. They share their wisdom and knowledge and guidance, and they help us grow. That's why it's so important to respect your elders. Think about your elders. Go sit with them, talk to them, listen and learn. Not just your elder people, but your trees. Go and sit and be with them. They're really important for us. I also want to talk about our elders emerging, our seedlings. That's our youth. We need them as much as they need us. So we need to support them in their life so they can grow to be Mani like we do. And back to you.
So Kwali and my background, I worked for many years in education within schooling systems, supporting young Aboriginal people in our local area with a lot of, I guess, wellbeing type of issues and things like that. Kwali's got a background in environmental land management. More recently, both of us have kind of stepped away from those roles and more into a cultural advisory capacity or a cultural education capacity. And probably most relevant to this room and this conference today, we're involved in Wobbly Kamunka. So on Ghana country, we have a Ghana environmental focused advisory committee that is supported through Green Adelaide. In that committee, we deal with a range of issues. We get approached about, massive development projects. We get approached about a whole range of different environmental focused things. We've actually presented at a lot of similar conferences over the last 6 months. For us, we find that quite often when we're talking at these places, we generally talk about the same thing over and over again. I know that, you know, quite often, you know, these conferences have a specific focus, today being water. For us on Kaurna country and for our belief system, when we're talking about things within the environment, we can't talk about one thing without the other thing. You know, so when we're talking about water, we can't consider the waterways here on our country without considering the plants. You know, and when we're considering the plants, we can't think about the plants without thinking about the animals that are associated with those plants. We can't think about those animals without thinking about, you know, and the plants without thinking about the soil types. You know, we can't think about those soil types without thinking about the air, and, you know, all of this connects to our ocean as well. So quite often, what we end up talking about is something that we've fairly recently been involved in over the last probably year or so. Learning on Kaurna country, we're trying to bring back cultural fire to our country, and we're being supported kind of at a national level with an organisation that's seen as a bit of a leader in this space, Fire Sticks. So Victor Stephenson, who's based in Cairns, has come down and shared knowledge around cultural fire, and it's about bringing back that cultural practice onto our landscape for several reasons. So for us, we believe that it can help to control a lot of things, so and possibly minimize the need for a lot of environmental work. So things like regreening, so planting native plants. We believe the fire can be used to actually bring back the right plants in the right landscapes, in the right soil types. When we're talking about waterways, you know, the health of that waterway depends on how clean it is. You know, we don't want those waterways to be cluttered with all the weeds or with introduced species. So fire actually helps to reduce those introduced species as well. We can bring back, you know, some of those rare or almost extinct plants because we've still got a remnant seed bank in the soil from 200 years ago. So for us, you know, and considering that it's all about healing country, but it's also about our cultural revival. So here on Kaurna land, we were impacted heavily on European colonisation. With Europeans first settling on the mainland, it was a government stipulation within the first year to clear all of our land. And so a lot of our native plants were wiped out. Our waterways were altered. So, you know, a lot of our drains were, you know, dug out. They were, you know, made into a straight line and concreted. That's created a lot of issues that we're seeing today with, you know, soil running off straight into the ocean. It's only nowadays that kind of modern sciences are working out that if we left all of those aquatic species along those waterways would be a lot healthier. Our ocean would be a lot healthier. Our skies would be a lot healthier. We would be a lot healthier. So when we're talking about fire and we're talking about water and plants and everything, for us, it's about looking at that holistic picture, and it's about trying to heal as much of that as we can, because, you know, it's our belief, you know, a lot of the sickness that we see today in modern society is a reflection of the land. It's because the land is sick, we're sick. And, you know, modern sciences also, you know, back that up as well with, you know, a lot of the clearance of lands. We have, you know, more eco-biodiversity in Mount Lofty Ranges here. 1 hectare of land has more eco-biodiversity than the whole of Europe. And so when Europeans first came here a couple of 100 years ago, they wiped out thousands of different species of plants to grow monocultures like wheat. Nowadays, we know that, you know, gluten isn't good for us, but, you know, we had tens, maybe even hundreds of plants in our bush that we could have made breads out of, a lot healthier breads. We had multiple fruits in our coastline that, you know, were healthier fruits. They were packed with nutrition and lower in sugars, higher in antioxidants. We had more meat sources. We had a bite of, you know, a really diverse diet. So I guess our hope, you know, and in attending conferences like this, we hope that people consider, and I know we have international guests here. I guess my hope is that people in the work that you do, that you engage with First Nations people all over the world, because I think some of those ancient knowledge sets, I mean, here in Australia, it's the best example of sustainability in the world. We've got 60,000 plus years of proven sustainability, living harmoniously with the environment. And I think, you know, there's lots that we can learn from that. In Kaurna language, so we say Natalia. Natalia means thank you. And in Kaurna language, so we're going to see you later. We're going to be doing a bit of a walk through the Botanic Gardens and down the torrens here. So in Kaurna language, we don't say goodbye either. We say see you later. So the word for see you later in Kaurna is nakara. So nakara and Natalia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clem and Kwali. That was an amazing welcome to country. I think we all learned a lot. So I'm Catherine Cross. I'm the AWP Strategy and Partnerships Lead. And I'm very honoured to introduce the Honourable Susan Close. Honourable Susan Close is the Deputy Premier and the Minister for Climate, Environment and Water, Minister for Industry, Innovation and Science, and Minister for Defence and Space Industries. Susan has been the member for Port Adelaide since 2012. And she said not to read her whole bio, but I will just mention that she is a fierce advocate for women in the workplace. And as it is International Women's Day, we're very happy for her to come here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Clem and Crowley, for that incredible welcome to country. The Kaurna people, for those who aren't from Adelaide, are known to be the educators. And you've just demonstrated yet again why your culture is so rich in generosity in educating others. Thank you. I also add that I am grateful to have been born to live and to work on Kaurna country, always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And when you think about a culture that counts its time in this place, not just in tens of thousands of years and in time immemorial, but in thousands of generations, then truly they have always been here and always will be. And this land is inextricably part of Aboriginal culture. And we have much to learn. I think modern science is catching up with ancient wisdom. I won't talk for too long because there's so many experts in this room that you need to hear from. But I would like to do a little bit of scene setting on the perspective from the South Australia of the challenges that we face and the opportunities as well. I'd like to touch a bit more on the role of Aboriginal culture and our responsibilities to redress past and current inequities. Also, I'd like to talk about climate change because you cannot talk about the environment and water without. And a little bit on the Murray-Darling Basin, which I think is reaching a crucial moment that it would be good to have as many allies as possible for. The question of the way in which we actually acknowledge the wisdom of Aboriginal culture is one that's before us all right now. We have a referendum coming later in the year in Australia. Yesterday, the South Australian bill for First Nations voice reached the lower house. It's already passed the upper house, as our Minister for Aboriginal Affairs is in the upper house and is the first Aboriginal member of South Australian Parliament. He's also pretty much my best friend in politics, and so I'm awfully proud of him. But there's a sort of pleasant warm glow that we can get about the idea of saying that we want a voice to Parliament. It needs to be so much more than that, although that glow is important because that changes how we think about our country and how we can reconcile with who we are. But more importantly, in many ways, is the way in which we actively listen and allow agency to Aboriginal people and Aboriginal culture to be participating fully in what affects their land and their culture and their communities, which affects our land and our culture and our communities, all of us together. And we are still in a situation, and this language is not good, and someone will help me come up with better language, but we have decided as a country to tolerate third world living conditions. And again, third world is probably no longer the right terminology, but third world living conditions for people within our very affluent first world country. And access to water is a very good example of that. It's not the only one, but access to water is important, because if you don't have reliable clean water, it's very hard to have a stable community. We have a project in South Australia looking at ways in which we can increase that reliability. But the fact that we have to still be talking about it, and the fact that it was made prominent in the recent federal government's discussion of closing the gap, ought to give us pause for thought about how far we are from true equality. More than that, though, we need to get serious about the idea of cultural water. What does it mean when we talk in the context of the Murray-Darling Basin to say that there will be cultural water provided to Aboriginal communities? How much? Whose water was it before? What benefit does it give to Aboriginal communities and also to the environment? It's been something that's been in the background for a long time. Something like 40 million was set aside by the Morrison government and immediately not spent. But the new federal government is proposing to spend it. Doesn't get you far, but it gets you further than nowhere. But how we truly grapple with building into our sense of what water is to be allocated, that cultural entitlement, I think is worth proper discussion. Now, all of that comes in the context, of course, of climate change. I don't need to tell you about climate change. You know how serious it is. We were talking before, it's been something that's been regarded, I think, by some members of the general public as the tomorrow problem, but it isn't. And it's becoming increasingly evident it's today. And the today manifests in many ways, but the extreme weather events that we are experiencing, of course, is part of it. And one of the challenges that we don't talk very much about is when you're dealing with an extreme weather event, you're not dealing with other things. So I was very pleased to hear that the Environment and Water Department here has been a good collaborator for establishing this conference today, because my goodness, have they been busy with the floods in the Murray. And they're also trying to be busy with trying to resolve the Murray-Darling Basin. So the effort that is taken away from long-term important issues because of short-term crises is something that costs our community, and not one that we often talk about. We simply expect the public service and the experts in the field, the scientists, to absorb this extra work, and it's going to get worse and worse. So too is the way in which there'll be an increasing expectation as private insurance becomes complex, that the government will be the insurers of last resort. And is that something that we all want? Do we all want to pay for that? And if we don't, what does that look like? But if we do, how do we fund it? And those challenges, again, are ones that we don't really talk about. We just go through each crisis. And now at least we're allowed to say that they're attached to this experience of climate change. But I think the larger discussion is yet to come. Now, those first two challenges, the challenge of fair water for Aboriginal people and communities, and also this challenge of climate change, will in part be resolved through clever policy and intelligent technological innovation. And I know that that's something that many people in this room have a great deal of expertise in. And it's one of the reasons I think it's so wonderful that you're having this meeting, because as you said, the superpower is bringing people together to be able to collaborate across different fields, different disciplines, to derive those intelligent solutions. But the one that I want to close on is the one that I'd really like some help with, which is the Murray-Darling Basin. It's been this sort of lingering sore even since Federation, which never resolved who owned exactly what water and who had what entitlement, which means that South Australia always has in its back pocket the question of whether we go to the High Court. But the reality is that if we can't resolve the complexity of a multi-jurisdictionally shared body of water, then we probably can't solve much else. It's very, very hard, but it requires solution. And to throw up our hands and say it's too difficult is unacceptable. And where we are at the moment is we're some 10 odd years into a plan that everyone signed up to that isn't at the moment going to be delivered. And there ought to be outrage about that. We've had a very long time to do this, and we haven't done it. Done a lot. There's been enormous benefit from what has happened. But we signed up to a 3,200 gigalitre plan, and we have about 2,100 gigalitres, plus probably 300 that you could count from the measures that are not water, but are the equivalent to water. It's supposed to be 605, probably 300 has been delivered of that. But the extra 450, no, hasn't been delivered. We've got 4.5 and another 12 or so in the pipeline. That's unacceptable, because much as radio people, when they interview me, like to say, well, you've got lots of water. What are you talking about? You've got too much. We know what follows floods in Australia. It's going to be a drought. And we cannot allow the environment to take a step backwards after there's huge challenges with the flood, but also a great gift for the environment. We can't allow it to take a step back from this reset opportunity that the floods have given us. And yet it is a real risk that we will. Now, the federal government has been magnificent. Tanya Plibersek, I've always really liked Tanya. She is outstanding. She's very, very strong, and she understands this, but she needs allies. She needs people to be talking about this. It needs to stop being just one of those issues that's in the background. It's a bit of a pity that we haven't really done anything on. It needs to reach prominence, because, as I say, if we don't resolve how we can share a multi-jurisdictional basin on which many, many, many communities and much of our economy depends, then we don't have much chance of discovering how we're going to get into a proper circular economy, a proper sustainability. We won't have a Murray-Darling Basin to live off if we don't resolve how to care for the environment that makes it sustainable. We need a healthy, working river. And at the moment, that's imperiled. So thank you for getting together. Thank you for your expertise. And let's take the sense of crisis that can sit over anything that deals with the environment, turn it into innovation, cooperation, and also strong advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the inspiring words. I'd like to now introduce Sarah Ransom, who's the AWP General Manager. She's going to go through an update on AWP. Thanks.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to see all your faces. It's great to be holding the Partners Workshop in Adelaide. What an amazing time to be here. Has complicated things slightly logistically, given so much else is happening here, but it's an amazing time to be meeting here on Kaurna country. I'd also like to acknowledge it's International Women's Day today, and I'd like to particularly thank Clem and Carly for your reminding us about the legacy of the Kaurna women and the strong ancestors that you have who are hopefully walking with us today. So thank you for that. I'd also like to pay my respects to the Kaurna elders, past, present and emerging, and thank them for their continuing care for country, community and waters. Final quick note of thanks to the Department of Environment and Water. Thank you for all the help you've given us to pull together an event of this scale in a city that's not ours. So your contribution really helped us to be able to connect to place in a way that we wouldn't be able to otherwise. So thanks, Ashley and Laura and Michael and Chantel for your help. Finally, I'll just note we have some special guests with us. Dr. Anulak Kidukun is over here, CEO of the Mekong River Commission. We're absolutely delighted to be able to host you here in Adelaide. Thank you for making the time to attend the AWP Partners Workshop. We've had a strong partnership for many years now, and it's wonderful to see you here with your colleagues, Ms. Pham. I'd also like to note that we have Rhonda Robinson from SPC joining us, and some of her colleagues are here already. She'll be here later today, I think. So it's exciting to be here. And we have already been presented with some big ideas. And this is what we're all about, bringing people together and sharing knowledge and having some good conversations, ones that matter. That's what we're really hoping to do with this Partners Workshop today. But big ideas and challenges is probably a fair characterisation of our last year at AWP as well. Just we were reflecting earlier, a year ago when we met in Canberra, we were our staff were quite different. So we have quite a new team now. We were just at the stage of preparing for extension of our core grants for another year and some additional money that we were anticipating would come in. And I was about 2 days into this job, so I've just had my work anniversary. So things have changed a lot for us. We've also done a lot of thinking over the last year about climate change and integrating that into AWP's work, and I guess exploring all the potential opportunities, but also trying to weigh up all the risks associated with working in the climate space as well. Thought I would just very briefly point out the team so everybody knows who the AWP staff are. I'll start with someone change the slide, I think there's faces. I'll start with the knowledge, partnerships, events and communications team. So, got to click out, cool. There we are. Catherine Cross, and stand up so people can see you. Catherine Cross, Lucia Gamara at the back there, Zoe Talsma. Oh, she's out. Okay, maybe this won't work so well. Shreya Gyawali over there. Thank you, Shreya. These are the women that did all the heavy lifting to get us here today, so please be good to them. They've had a pretty stressful couple of weeks. I really love the way they've put a lot of thought into all the details, particularly, I don't know if you've looked at your bags yet, but that is a piece of art that comes from this country. Gurindjeri man, Cedric Vasco is the artist, and that tells the story of the Murray River and the Coorong and the Murray Lakes. So thanks KPEC team for all of the work you've done to get us here today. Our core program team is next. So we have Rowan Kent is our program lead for the core program over there. Van Duin up the back there. Thanks, Van. Lachlan Prien, also outside organising something. And our Mekong team finally. Yeah, there they are. Led by Emily Barber. There she is over there. Ingrid Carlier, Lucy Silva. There she is. Okay. And we're also really grateful to have our 2 regional coordinators here. Vijay Kumar has joined us from Delhi, and Laura Beckwith is over here, who's new. She's our Mekong coordinator and lives in Phnom Penh normally. Okay. So in early 2022, our core and Mekong grants were extended by DFAT, which allowed us another year in this phase that we're in, which is phase 2, and some extra funding split between the Mekong and the core programs. This resulted in a flurry of activity with substantial new programs, including our first in Papua New Guinea, which kicked off last year, an expansion of successful water utilities twinning activity to focus on climate resilience, scoping work on pumped storage hydropower in the Himalaya, and several new and expanded activities across the Mekong. We're also really grateful to have deepened our partnerships around Indigenous water management, alongside new Australian government policy, which has really supported this work on First Nations diplomacy. We've really been grateful to have the space to allow that work to grow. Last year, we travelled with a group of Indigenous water specialists from around the Indo-Pacific region to Stockholm World Water Week. It was really a highlight of my year being part of that group of people and presenting to a standing room only crowd in Stockholm. It was a fantastic event. Yeah, real highlight for me. And that work's also been underpinned by a series of online dialogues that we've been hosting to try to deepen into these conversations and think about what does it mean for an organisation like us to try to support Indigenous partnerships across water and international development. So that's very conversation-based, very partnership-based. I think we have Sonia Cooper in the room, who's helping us with that through the University of Southern Queensland. It's a fascinating time globally where interest in Indigenous water has grown strongly, particularly where Indigenous water knowledge touches sustainability and resilience of water systems and where it links to biodiversity and food systems. And we're really honoured to be able to have played a bit of a role in the Australian contribution to that conversation. So I already said we've been doing a lot of work thinking about climate change and how our work needs to change to meet that challenge. Obviously, climate has become a huge policy priority for the Australian government, and we're aligning with that, and also for our partners around the region. So we've been working hard on linking water and climate in ways that lead to greater resilience. Of course, so much practice is already in the Australian water sector around climate, water and climate issues. So we've been engaging with some of that great work that's already been done and starting to tell the story in international forums and domestic forums. But I think it's important to say for us that it's not just a story. Linking water and climate forces us to think about systems. So Clem spoke about this, I think, and the resilience of people and ecosystems and communities and how that interfaces with water. It creates new opportunities for finance too of essential water needs. It creates a new lens to analyse risk and to apply all of the science and engineering knowledge that we have in our partner group to managing those risks. It also forces us to see how water sustains progress across every other sustainable development goal. And finally, it allows us to articulate the role that water plays in helping us to continue to fight for 1.5 degrees. It's really exciting to be working in this space, but we're also really aware of the challenges that are ahead of us. I'm not sure how I'm going with time, but I thought I'd just quickly say we've been through a performance reporting process, and I've just picked out a couple of highlights for me from the work that we've done. So I'd just like to note our partnership with the Mekong River Commission has really developed and evolved, supporting their lead in sustainable hydropower management in the Mekong region through things like assisting with preliminary design guidance, and that's a piece of work that allows for balancing the multiple factors that are involved in hydropower development. We've also done some work supporting the Mekong River Commission on the low key but really important work of fish movements and fish tagging, which helps Mekong scientists understand better how fish move through the system now that it's changed with the hydropower development. And of course, this is incredibly important for anyone who relies on the Mekong for protein, which is millions and millions of people throughout the Mekong River area. So the AWP partners from Charles Sturt University have a particularly strong way of partnering. And we heard last year from the 4 Lao scientists that are involved and are now among the best trained in Southeast Asia on the 2 methods of fish tracking that are being used there. I'd also like to note that we're really proud of our continued support for the Pacific Water and Wastewater Association, in particular Secretariat funding, their Young Water Professionals program, and support for their assessment of climate change readiness of Pacific water utilities. They held a conference at the end of last year, which our team attended, and they had 14 water ministers from across the Pacific there. We're really happy to be invited to attend that, and we really came away with an impression of dynamism and energy and dedication of our partners there. We've also been really grateful to grow our partnership with SPC, the Secretariat for the Pacific Community based in Suva. In Cambodia, we've had a small but important activity that's just finished with Partners Water Aid in Samaki Minche district, which has brought water resource management and WASH institutions together in an unusual way. I say unusual because sadly, the integration between the sectors is not all that common in our experience. But this activity has worked at quite a small scale, but managed to get water and WASH into district investment plans in a highly integrated way. So we think that's a win. It's really, would like to see more of that in the future. We've also completed our long-running and highly successful support to the MAVI program in India, which a lot of you might be aware of, which has supported inclusive and community-focused groundwater management through the use of the MyWell app. This program is now being scaled up nationally to support climate resilience through the Ministry of Jal Shakti in India. So we're really grateful to have the opportunity to have done that. We also had a really good year for finalising publications and getting their messages out through events and communications, including the excellent Community Voices publication by the Honourable Carleen Maywald and Leif Bully, 3 very substantial pieces of work done with the World Bank on valuing water, which looked at economic and environmental and cultural values of water. There's been a lot of interest in this publication, so it's really great to have published those. And we've also had a major publication on climate change and water security risk in the Indo-Pacific, which has been under development for a number of years. That's been published as well. I mention these pieces because this is the substantial and careful and relevant work that really forms the basis for our ability to work and engage with a number of high profile international events throughout the year. And I'll just note on the occasion of International Women's Day that our work on GEDSI has also increased and continue to deepen, with gender now routinely included in AWP activities and new work engaging disability and social inclusion issues. We're really pleased to have the organisation of people with disability in Hanoi involved in a new activity there, where they're advising the team involved on potential implications of legislative development on people with disability. There's obviously so much more to say. I've tried to be really selective. We have over 60 activities running currently, so there's always a lot happening in the AWP portfolio. But just to thank partners for your ongoing work. The strong partnerships forms the basis for everything that we're able to do. I'll just finish up by saying a little bit about what's in the future, what's on the horizon for us. The end of AWP phase 2 is only 15 months away now. And I know many partners are interested in what's happening next. We are expecting to move into a 3rd phase, but as is pretty normal, as we come to the end of one contract, we're in a position where slightly strange position where we're planning for work in the future, but we're not able to commit to anything. AWP finalised a new strategic plan at the end of last year, which I know many of you contributed to. And that really outlines for us where we think our resources and partnerships are the most effective and will continue to be in the future. This document will be published soon on our website. Of course, DFAT makes the final decisions about funding, timing, scope and direction, but we're feeling confident that our work is seen as highly valuable and highly visible, and we think we have a strong future ahead of us. So I'll stop here. I'm really looking forward to the day today, and just to say so much work has gone into it, and we're really hoping that it's an event that has enough space in it for connection and all the catching up we need to do, but at the same time kind of providing that overlay of new information that we all need to know and opportunities for learning and exchange. So I really hope you enjoy it. And I'll now hand over to Tamerlane so we can learn more about who's here with us.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And already last night we started with the Honourable Colleen Maywald, sorry, lots of names, giving a really good opening to this event, talking about partnership, and Clem and Kwali talking about systems and integration, hearing also around the breadth of what's going on with AWP. What we know with complexity is that, and as the Minister highlighted, it's not always easy. If we can't get the Murray-Darling Basin addressed, how can we possibly be doing bigger things in the world? So often these conversations start at home. So one of the things we'd really like to do in the next couple of days is practice our skills in terms of accessing diverse perspectives. So listening to one another, not necessarily assuming that we all agree, because this is also the power of coming together in these events, is not just being in an echo chamber of what often happens in our offices where we all come from the same discipline, we hear the same things. So I really encourage you to listen to one another over the course of the next couple of days. So just a few logistics and housekeeping items. So we are being recorded, not for the whole thing. When we do breakout small group sessions, we won't be recorded. So please use the mics. And I know when I facilitate a lot of these events, people go, oh no, I can speak really loudly. doesn't matter how loudly you speak for someone who's on the other end of a camera, at the other end of a Zoom session. So please do wait for the microphone and use it. So the on-country experience and conversations that matter tomorrow will obviously not be recorded. But if you can also keep in mind Chatham House rules for when you participate in those for the non-recorded sessions. So what we'd like to do is have really rigorous conversations around what we're seeing, what we're thinking. So with Chatham House rules, it's you can take away from those conversations. I heard a really interesting conversation about X. These are the sorts of things were discussed, but what we would request you don't do is say this particular person, insert name here, said this verbatim, and I've got some notes. Okay, so Chatham House rules, because we want to be able to have those really rigorous conversations. So in your bags, which are so beautiful, which you should all have handy, you have a 2-page info sheet. It includes the workshop agenda, the information on the venues, the on-country experience, Wi-Fi, all of the things you will need. Everything is in QR codes as well, so that you can scan those and open them on your phone. There's going to be 2 QR codes that are most useful for the whole workshop. One is the one that has all the agenda and all the logistics on it. The other one is the Menti, which we're going to be using for Q&A. So the online agenda is, there's a QR code on your, actually, Catherine, can you just wave it, that sheet there? We have this sheet, which is pretty much your go-to for what's happening in the next couple of days. But of course, the AWP team are around. So do ask them if you're unclear on anything else. So dinner tonight is at the Rotunda at the zoo. So just highlighting we're here for this part of the session. Then we're going to have the on-country experience, and then we're at a different venue. So between here, there will be buses back to the hotel. Then there will be buses. Sorry, there will be buses to take you on country. Then there will be buses to take you back to the hotel, and there will buses to bring you to the Rotunda. So AWP have done a lot of logistics around all of this. So please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. We are so lucky to have Gavin back with us again this year. So from last year's event, many of you will remember Gavin Blake, who is an extraordinary visual scribe, and he's already drawing away. Gavin, do you want to say hi to everyone? So tomorrow morning at 8:30, just a reminder, 8:30, we're starting tomorrow morning. Gavin will present his visual summary of today's events, which basically captures, tell me if I'm getting this right, captures the dialogue, the conversation, the flow, the pictures of who's presenting. It's an extraordinary thing. I don't know how he does it. So we're very fortunate to have Gavin with us here today. So without further ado, let's hear about who else is here. You're all here. And you're the important people who are going to be having lots of conversations over the course of the next couple of days. If anyone hasn't got a seat and wants to move in, there's another table, 2 tables at the back here. What we're going to do now is get to know who is in the room. What we have, and if Zoe or someone from the AWP team can come up and help me distribute these, we're going to put these in front of you. So from here, I can see your names, but also from across the room, they're in tens and one stack per table. And we've got markers on the tables set per table. If you can write your name, there should be markers, preferably not in yellow. If you can write your name in the darkest color you can find on that name tent, so that when you ask an incredibly insightful question, someone from the other side of the room can go, that person over there said that, and you can go and find them at morning tea and know what their name is. So in your tables, obviously the name, you all have name tags on, but they're not visible from across the room. So nice and big, if you can write whatever your preferred name is on the front there, bit of origami to get you going. If you can just fold them and write your names on the front. Fantastic. So as this table is demonstrating, Anna Jackson, I can read you from here. Alice, I can read you from here. Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. On the reverse of your table tents, you have a bit of a guide. We do a lot of work with leaders in navigating complexity and creating inclusion. And particularly when we're navigating complexity and the complexity of systems, it's really important that we listen to different voices. So just a bit of a guide there that through the course of this workshop, stop and suspend judgment. You may be hearing things that are different that you do or don't agree with. Use your observation and listening skills. And deep listening is such an incredible skill, and one of the skills that Australia's first people demonstrate so beautifully and have a lot to teach us about in terms of deep listening. Recognize and respect difference. You don't have to agree. One of the things that people often we find think is that consensus has to always happen. It does not. It creates better decision-making if we explore and triangulate our data and tease out the edges of some of this thinking that we're going to be exploring. So recognize and respect difference and find common ground. Well, what do we all agree upon? And I think we agree that you're all working on some pretty significant issues. So please keep those principles in mind. So who's here? This is my favorite part of the whole workshop, because we get to see the depth and the breadth of experience we have in this room. So let's start off with South Asia. Some of you who were at last year's workshop will remember what I'm about to do. So what I'd like you to do is, who's worked in South Asia? Stand up. Okay, stay standing if you worked there for more than 3 months. Okay, stay standing more than 12 months. More than 2 years. More than 5 years. More than 10 years. You're kind of different, VJ. More than 10 years, more than 20 years. Okay, so if you want to understand that part of the world, we've got a couple of name tents there. VJ and Jeff are the people to seek out. Let's go to Southeast Asia. Okay, who's worked in Southeast Asia? Stand up. Oh, lots of Southeast Asia. More than 3 months. 12 months. 2 years. 5 years. 10 years. 20 years. I won't keep going because some of them will be showing your age, right? Okay, thank you. Let's go to the Pacific. Who's worked in the Pacific? Stand up. We're so lucky to work in Palau last week. If you haven't been to Palau, the direct flight through Port Moresby just started last week, once a week. It's amazing. You must go. More than 3 months. More than 12 months. Yes. Worked there. So ongoing, sort of a fair bit. More than 2 years. More than 5 years. More than 10 years. Okay. More than 20 years. What? I can't see your name. Paul. So Paul, more than 20 years. Okay, Paul's the man for Pacific. Okay, anywhere else in the world, and obviously we've highlighted the regions where AWP is most active. Who's worked somewhere else that hasn't been covered? Anyone? Yeah, lots. Okay, call out some places or regions. Where have we got? Over here. Niger. Anyone else? Southern Africa. Okay, there's a few echoes here. Southern Africa, stand up. Southern Africa. Oh, lots. That's interesting. Okay, let's just repeat the Southern Africa and see for how long. So pretend this is Southern Africa. More than 3 months? More than 12 months? More than 2 years? 5 years? Your name, sir? Simon. Okay. Should I keep going? That'd be embarrassing. Okay. Okay. Any others we've missed? Middle East. Okay. Let's see. Middle East, stand up. All right. Oh, there's a lot. Okay. Let's just check. Let's get a bit more specific. It's a pretty diverse region. What part, any particular countries you've most worked in the Middle East? Iran. Iraq. Oman, Jordan, UAE, Qatar. Should we say almost everywhere? Bahrain. Okay. Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine. Oman. I think we're going to have to add the Middle East next year. AWP. Okay. We'll put that map up. So, sorry, it was Oman, UAE and Bahrain. Jordan. I was going to keep moving there. I should have stayed. Okay. Right. Okay. I'm going to do the years thing again. So let's just go back. So let's see, more than 3 months, 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Okay, sorry, can you just, what's your name? Beck. Okay, Beck, Paul, and Tom, people to go to for the Middle East. Anyone else? Any other parts of the world we've missed? Antarctica, South America. Anyone else, South America, or is that a Catherine? Oh, we've got a few. Okay, stand up. Oh, we've got lots. Okay, stand up. These maps are going to have to expand. All right, South America. Let's rewind. Oh, actually, where South America? It's a pretty big place. Let's start. Brazil, Bolivia, Brazil, Peru, Brazil, Bolivia, Chile, Ecuador, Amazon Basin, Peru, Ecuador, right. Okay. More than 3 months, more than 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Lucia. Okay. Is there anywhere else? I think we've. Georgia. And you're talking Georgia as in USSR, and you're talking last month, right, Rob? Okay, so if anyone's interested in talking about Georgia and what's going on in the last 6 months, some interesting conversations to have with Rob. Whoa. Okay, we haven't actually, yeah, we haven't gone there, have we? Europe, USA, Canada. All right, we're not going to go through all the European countries because we'll be here forever. Anyone done lots of work in Europe? Stand up. All right, I'm going to do this really quickly. More than 5 years. Who's left standing? More than 5 years. Okay, more than 10 years. More than 20 years. So what European countries have you mainly worked in? Belgium, Netherlands, Poland, all of them, okay. Okay. US. Who's US? Well, let's put them together, okay? Let's say US and Canada. Okay, and I'm just going to say who's worked in Canada, hands up, of the people standing. Okay, who's worked in US, hands up. Okay, great. Who's done more than 5 years? More than, okay, we haven't met you yet. Sorry, what's your name? Yes, Zach. So where in the US? New York, okay. More, have we any more than 10 years? Okay. What a group, huh? This is why, particularly tomorrow, you're going to have a chance to really engage with this group in conversations that matter, drawing on this depth of experience and expertise. You may choose to do that in regional conversations in terms of parts of the world, or you may choose to do it on topics. We'll see how we go. Now, we've got a list here. This is always a bit controversial because people always want to get into definitions. I'm not going to argue with you, okay? You can stand up for more than one. It's up to you how you define what it is. These are criteria that the AWP uses to segregate different sectors. So you don't have to pick one. I'm going to highlight them and I'd like you to stand up if you work in this sector. So private sector. Okay. Yep. NGO. Who works in an NGO? Okay. An educational institution. Sort of. Clem and Quiley are like, maybe. Okay, educational institution. Federal government. Okay, state government. Getting your work out for the day, some people who are up and down. Okay, association. Oh, just 2. Welcome. 3. Utilities. Oh, you better tell us what it is, given that. Unity Water. Not for profit. Okay. Thank you. Please take a seat. Now, as mentioned, we're going to be using Mentimeter throughout the workshop. And so there's going to be information provided whenever you need to use Mentimeter. You can do it either using the QR code. We're much better at this since COVID, or you can go to menti.com and enter the code. Can everyone please now do that and answer the questions which are on Menti? Beg your pardon? If you've been to 4, that's a good question. I'm going to make that one say 4 or more, okay? So the more than 4 includes 4. So we have 65 results here. Okay. We're slowing down a bit. So while we're waiting for a couple of people, we've got lots of first timers. That's great. Let's start off with the 4 or more. Hands up, 4 or more. Okay. 3, hands up. 2. First one. Welcome. Great. All right, let's go to the next slide. So let's see the degree of you just need to click activate slide. Get that up in a moment. Okay, so the largest response there is lots, working with AWP projects and team members on a regular basis. And we've got a few people where it's their first encounter. So what I'd like to do, just to finish off before we go to morning tea, is if you can please now, in your tables, quickly go around and introduce yourselves to each other. So maybe you turn your table tents around so people can see your names. And I'd like you to just introduce who you are, where you're from, why you're here. Why did you choose to come to this event? What are you hoping to get out of it? Okay. Has everyone been introduced? Yes, good. All right. So very quickly, before we go to morning tea, why are we here? Give me something from each table. What was one of the reasons these people from this table are here? What do we want out of the next couple of days? Something from your table, Mike. Engagement First Nations. New areas of knowledge we haven't accounted for in policy making. Great, thank you. Something from your table. Why are we here? What are we hoping to get out of it? Reasons for hope and the path forward. Fantastic. Something from your table. Something why we're here. Learning. And connections. Great. This table. New friendships, partnerships, collaboration. Wonderful. VJ, your table. Great. Learn about each other's experience and meet new people. Meet the AWP team. Fantastic. Okay. So we're hearing some pretty consistent themes coming out here. The table at the back. Old and new friends. Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Fantastic. Intergenerational knowledge sharing. Wonderful. Thank you. At the back table. Anything that hasn't been said? Great. Strengthen partnerships, make new ones and learn. Yes? Pitch them on or? Sorry, what was that? Great. This table? Anything we haven't said already? Research and translation. Okay, great. Oh, what? We can't finish on that. Have we heard from every table? He was very cheeky, and I'm not going to repeat it. I think we're here. Oh, one more. Yes. Being in a zoo. Absolutely. Okay, welcome to the zoo. Let's go and have morning tea and start doing all of those things, those conversations, collaborations. And we have half an hour. So we'll see you back here at 11 a.m. Thank you.